Hello and welcome to Nagaland News Network. Ami Kanlaka State Day Nagaland Legislative Assembly Elections February 27 day hobole se ituman aro itu ami kan sop manu chani ase. Enaka homoi de Nagaland News Network ra GB ekta prominent leader aro social activist KK Sema retired IAS style lo de ahigena ase. Ami kan tailo de tailaga phapna aro tailaga opinion kinika ase itu upcoming elections opore noilibi society de ita kinika julia ase itu talaga side pro talaga phapna olopuni lobo. Thank you so much for the time again, sir. Sir, you are also one of the senior citizen of the state who have been witnessing state elections over the past years. So how are you looking forward for the upcoming elections? Do you think the same will follow like the past years, or you're optimistic that things will change during the upcoming elections?
Well, as a senior citizen, I think I am a rather optimistic human being, but at the moment I'm looking at the reality with such a lot of pessimism because the society in general has not changed. In fact, it's more on the critical decline rather than an improvement on whatever we have done wrong in the past to make corrective measures, take corrective measures and look for better approaches to the total issue of management of a government, our politics, our social overview of exactly how honorable the Nagas are. And when I see the broader picture, things are more on the decline rather than on the at least a couple of steps that can be considered as an improvement to the past. And comparatively, when I look at the first generations of our Naga elders and see the value system that applied in their time, it began so well when our first generation politicians were people who also were the first generation Christians. And when they were elected, they were not elected by way of buying their votes. They were elected because they were believable people with character, people with a sense of dignity, honor, and also the basic value of a Christian honesty and the Christian compassion where they cared for the people they represented. And so when you see the good values that had been the basis within which our first political generations had come up, you see, it is so sad because we are far, far away from that first generation of people that set the foundry of our state within which the generations have grown. And today, it is sad to say, but if we are going to, let's say, look back at our time now, in the time of our children and our grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, when they look back in time that we are living now, I have such a sad kind of a sentiment to say that history will judge this generation very, very harshly. That we are a generation of elders that you have just mentioned. Yeah, we are the elder citizens of this state now. And it is so sad because we as elders, I think probably it would not be so wrong to say that we are an elder generations of self-seeking hypocrites. We have forgotten the common man's reality, and we have become so hypocritical and self-serving. You know, it's a self-aggrandizement, that I must get rich. That is about the only limits of our thinking process. And I think we are going to be seen perhaps as a generation of cowards, hypocritical cowards, because we have struggled for our freedom for the last 76 years. The whole movement has been on. We are totally fragmented people, both in the overground as much as in the underground in a common terminology. Be it in the underground, we have so many factions. But while we point fingers at our factional national workers, we look at our common society, the overground society, how many unions and how many kind of segments of tribalistic forums that are there, all talking about the same thing with a different intentions. And most, I think, who may say whatever, whoever may say, but the fact of the matter is, each little segment or factions or unions or federations or NGOs, every little one have their own priority that has to do with pride of their own segment or the welfare of that one little union, wanting to do a little better than the other union, other NGOs. We are competing about nothing. And in all of it, we have forgotten the fact that we are a people that have been brought from the darkness into a Christian world with a new vision, new approaches, none of which has applied, and we have become totally selfish in everything that we do. And so I think our political system that we began with such fine approach, where our people didn't even know how to sell votes. When our people elected people because of the quality or the character of the leaders. You see, those days are long gone. It should have been a refinement of those goodness rather than to corrupt it to the level we are. And therefore, I can only see that things are not going to be improving. It's going to get worse because at this point in time, I have a clear sense of a perspective view that the voters are going to sell the votes and in fact sell it for more this time than even the last elections. Because of the desperate way of individual survival that has taken over the system, and the politicians or the candidates are going to have a hard time because they're going to have to spend more. And the moment they do that, the whole system, the vicious cycle that I always talk about, becomes clear and totally operative. You see, the best of our Christian candidates, no matter what they may be saying, when they are forced to buy the votes of the public or the voters, you see, they are going to borrow money, they are going to mortgage everything that they have. I keep saying that many of the candidates go to the extent of even mortgaging their own living shelter, their own houses, in order to get money for what? To buy votes. Now, when such a man is lucky to be elected, the first primary human response would be to salvage as much money as he can in order to recover his house, repay the loans, as the first primary effort that he puts his mind into. Where is the people's welfare in that kind of a thinking process of that man? It's not going to happen. So we don't have anything that is constructively going to be attempted because even the ministers or the MLAs or the advisors for any other position that they create, every single structure is built in order to recuperate whatever has been spent. And the funny part of the equation is the public knows but just are not prepared to change, you see. But at the same time, they are complaining that there is no good road, no good health, no infrastructure, no development. Why are we complaining about any development? Let the whole Nagaland rot. Let it rot. Because that's the way we are structuring the whole thing. When the public sell their vote, they seem to think, well, it's only me. I'm the only one who asked him for 10,000 bucks to get my vote. But that candidate is talking to a guy like me who's selling my vote and every other 10, 20,000 people in that constituency. That one single individual who says, but I only asked for 10,000 bucks, 15,000 bucks. You put them together in a basket and that goes into crores. And no Naga candidate, except for the one seasoned people that have been in power for so long, there are so very many of them who are billionaires. There are people who can buy the whole of Nagaland without my mentioning any names. It is more than obvious that there are heavyweights in the Naga community who are now completely oblivious to the suffering of a common man, as long as they structure a power grid in which to continue spinning that machine of corruption and keep continuing to amass wealth. They don't care for the people. And we are creating that system ourselves. And so I don't have any sunny picture of what might come tomorrow after the election. I don't think we are going to have any change because the people are not prepared to change. Every single individual that I generally have taken a small little look at seem to feel that, well, this is the time to make a little bit of money because next 5 years we are not going to be seeing anything tangible, you see. And therefore, why not just make a little pocket money when we can? That seems to be just the common man's way of looking at the totality, and we have totally forgotten that Nagaland, which should have been more competitively ahead with, at least within India, we ought to have been one of the leading states in terms of an honorable people, in terms of intellect, in terms of any other given space within which the Nagas can compete. Our Naga new generations are people amazingly talented on a natural scale without any kind of a training. The natural God-given talents that the young generations have, you see, is all because of their own innate capabilities without too much of interference of any structural assistance given to them. And yet they are doing so well in so very many fields, you know. And if you were to just see the possibility where if infrastructure was well available to our young generation, just imagine the magnitude of our people's advancement compared to the rest of the country, you see. And we are just pouring water over the fire of abilities that our generations are capable of. With all the underground taxation, with all the corruptive government system, with all the backdoor appointments, and with all the unbelievable things that are happening in our state, you see, it's a sad picture because nothing is going to change. With this election, we are not going to see anything better, anything as an improvement. I would say that I think, you see, I've always been saying, we Nagas are trying desperately to go forward on a back gear. I have said that very many times. We put our vehicle on a back gear, look forward and drive as if we are going to go forward, but every time you press the accelerator, we look forward and go backward. Yeah? And that's exactly what we are doing. And the totality of our people, be it the overground, underground, the common man, or our leaders, all are self-centered individuals. That includes people like me as well as the senior citizen. So I would say, I think we have a sad generations of people that have failed to see the greater picture of our future for our children. That is the way the whole picture of politics look like to me as of now.
So, talking about the society, and you have also rightly mentioned that the people have been complaining again and again upon the government. So, do you also think that the society also play a vital role in the upliftment of our state?
Oh, it is we the people who are electing the leaders. Huh? And the manner in which we are doing this is on a corruptive scale within which we just cannot create leadership of a fine quality that would turn around after winning to look at the welfare of the common man. But we are destroying, we the people, the common man, the man with a vote, is destroying the totality of a system that should work for our welfare. We create right from the beginning a destructive system within which, when I say, you see, it's not that our candidates are bad people, but the fact of the matter is, it is the gambling of a highest order, the mother of all gambling, this election. It's nothing to do with the value of a human being here as a candidate. It is how big is his money bag. And that's exactly the reason in very many other interviews or in written areas of things that I do, I've said, see, in Nagaland, even a rat or a cat or a dog or a pig or a cow, if it has money, is more than capable of winning an election. We no longer care whether they are human beings or animals. If a rat comes to you and gives you a like, you'll vote for the rat. That's the way it is. We no longer have values. And this is where sometimes I look back at the root cause in the whole situation, and to think that we are all Christians here, and the church, the need for the church to play a very important role is not just to start a clean election campaign 5-6 months before the election. What do they do for the rest of their lives on a day-to-day basis, controlling the total congregation that attend the church's services with their representative, preaching to that congregation everywhere down to the last village? They have churches. The biggest building in any given village is the church building. And the total population of that village congregate in that church. And what do they learn? You see, when it comes to election, the pastor, along with the deacons, have a lot of Christmas list, Christmas wish list during the time of election. That's the way I say, and I jokingly say, I think in Nagaland, Jesus Christ gets locked up in the strongest box that any village can have for at least 5-6 months before the election, and then have a good solid outing to see how much money you can make. And it's amazing because while having their hands stretched selling their votes, they ring the Sunday devotional service bell in the morning, all of them haggling in the weekdays like a fish market, haggling exactly how much they should get for their votes, and happily they will go to the church and thank God for the manna that they have received. You see, that's who we are. That's how cheap we are. And that's not just one tribe, it's every tribe and every village who are doing this. So what the hell are we trying to expect out of this election? Nothing. It can only get worse. You see, we are running a government without transparency. We are running a government without any accountability. So earlier there used to be a little fear that if you get caught, you could get punished. If you misappropriate and get caught, you probably would get punished. There was some kind of a fear, to be corruptive. Today, it is an open secret. Every single one is looking for some kind of a bribe or a commission of one kind, from the minister down to the bureaucracy, down to the common man. Where the hell are we headed? Where are we going? And we are not even trying to rectify this, because when somebody talks about the system within which we are electing our government, that gentleman is laughed at as somebody who is downright stupid. people like us are looked at as stupid people for talking about issues like selling a vote that destroys the system, you see. And as long as that be the common perception, I think we're headed for nowhere. We're headed for nowhere.
So, talking about the current political situation, the Democratic Alliance Party between the BJP and the NDPP, there have been a huge cry of the BJP party workers about this 40 to 20 seat sharing. So, what is your stand on that as well?
Look, in as far as this seat sharing issues are concerned, it is fraught with the political equations. Mr. Rio wouldn't want to give any more than whatever has already been given, because out of the 40, how many of his candidate will win? That's an issue. Among the BJPs too, the tempo, we as Nagas have lost all prerogatives. As far as I'm concerned, the one thing that I am firmly in belief is BJP may be a political party, but the depth in which they are looking at India as a nation, a Hindutva establishment. You know, there I think the Nagas have to think quite seriously. Look at the Christians that are getting persecuted, at least within our state, we are the majority. But everywhere else, the Christians are a minority. And the blatant way in which the Hindus are destroying the churches, persecuting our Christians elsewhere, you see, just because they cannot do it in Nagaland against you and me right here, does not mean the principle of our faith should be compromised and allowed to be compromised everywhere else in the country. There are times when I start thinking, you see, if the RSS agenda of wanting to create India as a Hindu country, you see, should we be a part of such an infrastructure? Those are very serious concerns. Because it's the fundamental rights that are being questioned by the RSS. You see, the rights and the freedom, the identity of the people, you see, are no longer a guarantee. And the manner in which the rights are being usurped, where we see on a public scale that the persecutions have begun, and even the attempted laws, the anti-conversion laws, you see, the whole Christian system is to spread the gospel. That's the main work of a Christian. Now, when that be, what happens if the law comes and says, you cannot preach. You cannot go beyond your offenses and talk to other faith for them to look at Christian faith and see whether they would be acceptable to that. And no matter what we say, if there is an individual conviction to want to become a Christian, the law prevents him to do that. He can be jailed, he can be persecuted, he can be put into a whole lot of inconveniences. See? But when the law itself is made in such a manner as anti-conversion laws, then you have the common civil laws. We have our customs and traditions. With that kind of a background that we have, if such a common law gets to be the primary law of the land, what happens to us, Nagas? You see? So we have very critical problems that has to be properly assessed. And therefore, when we look at the BJP, it is a party, is a political party, but the agenda they have behind in the back stage is definitely something that is not in the spirit of the Indian Constitution. The word secularism is now being put to question as to whether it should exist in the Constitution at all. You see? And that's why the RSS questioning things like this. And the BJP is a party that does namaste to the RSS ideology. So when these things of reality are put into perspective, yes, politically they are in the center, governing, And we Nagas have the stupidity to consider only that perspective. And now every other area, there are people who are saying, you want to contest, come on a BJP ticket. You see, we have come down to that. You see, the reality of our honor, our identity, you see, in some way or the other. Whatever has been given to us as a protection under Article 371A, even that we are unable to define for ourselves. You see, we are trampling even on the little privileges that we've got. And all of these situations have gone so far, and we have created a total lack of sensitivity within our ability to ensure that all tribal communities that are within the state of Nagaland gets a fair share of advancement. And since that has not been a part of a governing system, you have the ENPO people who are coming up with the frontier Nagaland, a separate state, and so on and so forth. You see? And so these are all the end result of a careless, non-caring government that has paid no attention to anybody other than their own personal self. You see, the issues have been simmering for quite some time. The Eastern people's issues have been rippling in the surface for quite some time. But the government or the party involved in governance have never paid any attention. So it's the creation of the present government that has landed up in ourselves trying to divide ourselves purely on the economic background that some tribes have gone so far ahead, whereas others are still struggling down in the gutter. And the Eastern brothers of ours have felt the brunt of that indifference for so long, so they are coming up with this. You see, otherwise, as far as the ENPO is concerned, they must also realize that when the state of Nagaland was created, they were the first generation elders of their tribe, whichever it may be, have all collectively put their heads together and have joined up to form what we call the state of Nagaland. They were a very critical part in that formation and the decision. And you see, this is why I say, our first generation people were people that had a very honest approach to every given circumstances. Among the backwardness of the Nagas as a whole, we still had the Eastern people who were not even administered by the British, you see. But that the moment we came into this new status of a state of Nagaland, the first generation people, they were good people and decent people with a forward-looking vision that all of us as Nagas must put our hands together, and grow together. You see, those were fine visions, you see. But because of the backwardness, you see, they had the regional council within which their own elected or selected elders were brought up and then made to join up with the rest of the state as equal representation that they would get. The other part of it was, at the inception, there was a special, even a cabinet minister that was purely assigned with a portfolio of looking at the Tueng Sang affair, because that time Tueng Sang was the only other area. I mean, there was no such thing as Mount Longlang or whatever district has come up. All undivided situation of Tueng Sang as the big picture, where all the other tribes within it, they were free people, but with the common vision of wanting to be together as Nagas. It was with complete endorsement by the first generation people that the state of Nagaland began. And when the special status that they were given was on a recognition that they comparatively are behind the rest of the other tribes, which were backward in itself but looked at from among ourselves as a little more better off than the others. And so, you see, the starting point of our first generation elder was that they have to be paid special attention. They created a cabinet post for that. Now here the Eastern people also must understand that backward as they may have been, The fact is, they have been a part of governance. They've had ministers who held important portfolios in the state. All this while. And it is also their responsibility to introspect. Instead of slashing or lashing out to the general Nagas as a whole, they must also introspect and look at the presence. See, they've had that many ministers and MLAs in the present government, you see, who have had portfolios that are big, responsible. What did they do? And the ENPO people must, when I say introspect, look at the leaders that led them all these years. Have they only been self-seeking people, or have they put their heart and brain into trying to create infrastructure for the backward status of the Eastern Nagas? You see? Did they do that, or did they not do that? Have they benefited personally rather than the community? You see, they have to introspect all this. And in all fairness, apply their mind. And when they talk about the special arrangement, as I said, there was already a special arrangement made, but the present government or of the last 15, 20 years, all they have done, or even 20, 30 years, after the first few generation people, slowly but surely, that special attention paid to the eastern sectors of our Nagas, you see, have slowly but surely disappeared into nothing. You see, and the result is even the eastern leaders, Naga leaders, have been more involved in creating their individual power base, wealth base, and they have forgotten even the common people in their own ground. You see, so the responsibility of pointing fingers only at the forward Nagas would not be a right way to look at it. And the vision of the elders that all of us are Nagas, the impartiality should have been, the transparency should have been, the accountability should have been a norm in which we kept certain basic priorities in operation from then till now. If that were the case, our Eastern Nagas would not even have felt any different from us. They don't feel any different from us even now. You see, it's just that economically and every other facilities deserved of them, you see, have not been given to them. So it is more the economic base within which they need to be given some kind of a governing capacity and a capability. And so when the government or the overview is that a special arrangement is going to be made, as long as it is just a financial arrangement within which they are given every privilege to grow as fast as they can, create infrastructure as best as they can, independently of the rest of the Nagas here. And then let them also grow in tune with whatever direct funding or whatever generated funds that they can plan for themselves. I say that's a welcome thing. But I think when the state as it is so small, and to continue bifurcating it into smaller segments, it is a doom not only for the Nagas in general, but even for themselves. You see, we belittle and we fragment ourselves to small little corners, where maybe you may think we are doing well, but when we look at the bigger world, we are just like that little frog in a small little pond, thinking that he commands the world. But when we put them on a map, we are insignificant. And when we are so insignificant as it is, we want to create create a situation that thereby we get even more insignificant than already or what we already are. You see, so I think all these political things that are going on in various ways, I think somewhere along the line, as long as both the underground factions and the overground factions, as I would say, all the tribalistic approach to union and NGOs, I think it's about time that we look both overground, underground, should be looking at what is the common kind of finality to all this uh, stupidities that are going on. Government of India may want to arrive at some conclusions, provided we people also, as a common, united Nagas, as it were to be able to present our case in unison, you see, as a united thought, you see. As long as we are unable to arrive at such a conclusions where there is no bickering, there is no this thing, and all the leaders that are there, I think all of us need to put our heads together and find one common front, you see. And I feel sad because the Nagas of Nagaland had one solid foundry, a common platform where all the tribes were affiliated to, and that began way back. It was called Naga Ho. That was the fundamental platform that should have been the final spokesperson for exactly what the Nagas as a whole have as a political vision or as an effort that needs to be put forward so that we have a common agreed vision within which to work with all the factions, make them unite as well, and together they and the underground and the overground looking at specific issues that must be given to the Nagas, where our honor, our identity, our dignity is well and truly protected. You see? Then, if with those conditions guaranteed, if we approach the subject matter, Government of India would have long ago been able to sort out our issues. 26, 7 years is not a matter of joke, talking of the same thing without any kind of a deviation and then getting stuck on the same issue for how many years, you see. So I think it's about time that the Naga elder generation especially, and most of all the so-called leaders that we have, I think politics for self-aggrandizement, politics for self-survival, politics for self-amassment of wealth, that is the only politics the Nagas have played so far. I think we better drop all of these things and look at least solving our Naga issues, our identity, our place on this planet Earth as to what we should be. And together, if we solve that out, I think we Nagas have a future, a brighter future possibility, but not in the manner it is in now. And we are not even focusing on this. We say solution before election. Well, it's a proposition, a thought, but at the same time, when it comes to reality of application, who the hell cares? Everybody now is now looking for party tickets of one kind or the other, like pigs looking for shit. See? So where is the bigger picture of Naga's identity and the solution that we want? Where is it? So here we are. We are a lost, confused people. All we know is the corruptive way of wanting to earn our comfort zone, and that's the final picture of ourselves. See?
Talking about the government, the state have been witnessing the elder generations running the government. And these elections, we are going to witness some young intellectuals fighting for the elections. So do you think it's time for the state to let the young people, the young intellectual run the government?
Well, you see, as I keep saying, it's about time. You see, the crude manner of half-baked understanding as a generation began, but they began honestly. Then came the more educated set of people that have led the state, and the leaders of today, they may be old, half old, however it may be, have been educated people too, you see. But the spirit within which the whole system is operating, whether the elders or the younger generation, new entrants, new faces as we are calling them, yes, it's an opportunity that they should get. But What an opportunity we are giving them, because as soon as they join the system, they are going to join it in the same manner as the old generations have run. And they can do nothing beyond that circle of corruption. So they may be intellectuals, they may be brilliant, they may be whatever with good qualities as human beings, but the fact of the reality is they enter the political world, and the political norm and the system that prevails is a corruptive system that they are going to cross that bridge. And if they can cross it without corruption, without spending money, or they try to cross the bridge without spending money and hoping for an honest vote for him to win the election, that's not going to happen. You see, he is going to cross that bridge spending every damn penny that he's got, plus whatever he can salvage from the market at 10%. Naga loans, for instance. You see, so when he's going to be put into the system and to cross that bridge on the other side, you see, he may be a fine gentleman. The fact of the matter is, he has got no choice but to be as corrupt as the elders are. There's no way he can change. It's not because he's weak or he hasn't got any principle. But he's a human being to begin with. You see, young, old, it makes no difference, therefore. You see, otherwise, it's about time. The whole system to be overhauled is the kind of system that we are looking at. But Nagaland is Nagaland political system, our Naga population, we are all in the ICU. Desperately down with fourth degree cancer. We are all in the ICU. The government system is in the ICU. Political parties are in the ICU. The candidates are already in the ICU from the first step they have taken. You see, and there's no cure for this. And the only possible way, as I said, the churches could have played a very important role. But when the church itself is corrupt, I mean, there are very good people in the mission workers, among the mission workers too. Very solidly profound and faithful Christians. I don't deny that fact at all. But you see, in every given basket of a community, you have the good apple and the bad apples. Well, when the church becomes part of that bad apple system, I think the church also needs to take a serious look at the manner in which it operates. You see, I know for a fact that most of the mission field, of whichever tribe as it may be, look at their pastors as the lowest grade operators in the field, when it should have been just the other way around. The executive secretary or the head of the mission, yes, he's the head, no doubt about it. But if any mission is to succeed, they've got to treat their pastors in a manner where you have pastors who have got an inner core conviction and a commitment, as a mission worker with faith as his basic fundamental part of a foundry. And with that committed way within which he deals with every congregation, that pastor is the most important human being in a Naga society, actually, the pastor. You see? But in the mission field itself, they don't even see it that way. They look at the pastor as the fourth grade kind of people who are, in some cases, sent out to a village and even forgotten that they were part. In the past, there have been pastors who have been posted to a village, a small a village. The pastor becomes a part of that village, works like a villager, does cultivation, and we just become a part of that village, see? And he even settles down there after his retirement, you see? We have a lot of people who live under those environments, you see? And here, with such a lot of wonderful messages of good Christians, how their lives have been transformed from whatever they were to the glory of a good Christian faith individual. You see, testimonies, wonderful testimonies are there, but the grassroots people know nothing about it. Because the pastors also don't know about it. And they have no story to tell, you see. And they are not backed up as a way, a routine within which a pastor becomes a committed man. He is able to talk to the congregation with fresh kind of stories and convictions that even the congregation can sit up and say, I think we need to improve. None of, or at least most of the pastors are unable to do this duty. And it's the mundane reading of scriptures and just talking any nonsense as he can come up with. Many of them don't even meditate. They open the Bible, whichever verse strike their eyes first, they take that to the pulpit and try their best to rattle off any Tom, Dick and Harry example that doesn't touch you anywhere. And every day after year, the same chappie as a pastor is doing that, creating a bunch of indifferent Christians, you see, right? And therefore what we have done is we have created a society of Christians as a clan. That's why I say, Nagas we belong to a Christian clan without Christian value. We have nothing to do with any value system here anymore. You see? So I think the church needs to look at this subject very, very carefully, because to reform a given society, we've got to begin from the grassroots and to introspect as to how they have served the people as a church. You see, they are meddling in all kinds of issues. See the NLTP, the prohibition stuff. If they were to just simply look at their responsibility to the community and convert individual to a reborn Christians, and if I'm from their help, if I'm convicted as a reborn Christian, you see, I myself will decide not to indulge in alcoholic consumption. Because by conviction as a Christian, if the church is able to help me with that status of a true believer, I myself will stop touching liquor. So if the church is able to take that assignment responsibility rather than take shortcut and become a government, an administrator, a lawmaker, you see, that's not their duty. Leave the government to the government. Let them deal with their responsibility to convert people like me who drink into a Christian that says, I think I better stop this drinking. You see, then where's the problem of having to have any prohibition or no prohibition? The total community would have been looking at themselves as a born-again Christian that does not require the assistance of liquor to sustain their lives. So why are they not doing their duty? Rather than meddle into what is hardly their responsibility. And going into the political circle and say, for those who are trying to abolish prohibition, which the church will react. See? They are taking their religious responsibility into the political field directly. Clean election campaign. Why don't they try to clean up the Christian's mind as a way of life, as a routine base, rather than just wake up, wash your face with cold water just 6 months before the election and start motorcycle rally in order to do this walker turn or whatever antics that the people do. Those little antics are not going to work. We have to go deep down into the whole community system and then look at the possibilities where the roots have gone wrong. And then fertilize it properly with Christian values. That's all.
So there's a saying that a woman is the pillar behind a man's success. And so basically a woman is a backbone in an individual's life as well as the society. So the Naga Mothers Association have appealed the political parties to issue the tickets to the women folks as well. Do you believe and do you think that women in the politics, women in the government will pave a way for a better state tomorrow, sir?
Look, in as far as this issue of women's representation is concerned, I've always held the belief that there are customs and traditions, a customary approach to the issue of society and so on. But then every society exercises the mind at a given time by the dictates of environment. You see? So in the past generations of headhunting, when the whole system of the society was on the culture of headhunting, you see, women just didn't have a role to play because it was totally a physical way of existence. Huh? The brain had nothing to do with it. And women folk did not fit into that kind of a culture. Hmm? Well, the world has changed and moved on. And so now the physical approach to a solution is not anywhere an acceptable norm. Now the brain is the essence of an approach to governance. Huh? And when we put that status into proper perspective, you have got a space for the brains. And when we say brain, are we going to consider the fact that the woman's brain is any lesser than that of the man's? Hmm? And then, in so very many ways, there have been women folks who have been much more honest, much more forthright in their approach. And then they are more sensitive towards smaller situations like understanding the kitchen problem that the husbands never, you see. And when we look at the welfare of the children, husbands and wives put together plan a family, you see. So then when you look at the government as a bigger picture of a family planning, meaning the Naga people as a whole, I don't see where women folks' place should not be provided at all. But there are so many other things of imbalances within which women cannot be up on their own feet, inherent setbacks. And I think it's about time that we overgrew those setbacks that the women folks have suffered. And we are glad to hear at least there are a few lady candidates, and I think it's about time that we give them the space and let them also do the best and see whether they can actually be exemplary after winning. Hopefully they win, and if they do win, I hope they can be that light that would enable to brighten their corners of the women folks. But it is basically necessary that the women themselves have to make the decisions of wanting to be a part of the political system. See? We cannot conduct the whole situation with reservations and with hand-holding. You see, the society is still unable to accept those kind of a thing, even if it's a hand-holding. How much can we nurture that? So the women folks have to rough it out with the rest, and I'm glad that there are a few that have come up with the courage to dare the system itself. And I hope they are doing well, you see, and I wish them well. But it's time, it's about time that they are given space. I'm glad.
Thank you so much, sir. It has always been a pleasure talking with you, sir. Thank you so much for joining with us. Amian so panu jani ase kwa nishna ami khan state Nagaland de February 27 bra elections thakibo ase aro ami khan kui thage public khan government ge pishi complain korage ami khan state Nagaland de hulu ek par ami khan sali to public khan bi society bi ekta role play kore to uplift our society sir ki samalo de kothar kan de apnan bi hunish aro janise. So I think it's high time for us, it's high time for the people to cast your vote for a better tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining with us. This is Komito Nongdi with video journalist. I'm Jamir.